incident at one of our local high schools. Certainly always concerned when what appeared to be a fun activity turned into something that was dangerous for the individual, the performer. And in some cases, you know, a few students were taken to the hospital as a precaution. As we understand it as of today, we haven't had any indication that those individuals were harmed. And I understand that the performer also has come out and stated that he's okay, he's recovered. So I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions rather than make any additional comments.
Can you talk about the fact that he says the school did approve the pyrotechnic element and district spokespeople said that is actually against policy? What's being done about
The board's policy is very clear and very explicit that you cannot use pyrotechnics at the school, particularly inside of a building. Now, the part that we're investigating is who knew what, who approved this particular contract, and did in fact the principal and the chain of command at the school know that part of this would include pyrotechnics.
If the principal did know that, would there be any sort of disciplinary action?
So it's too early for me to assume whether or not she knew or didn't know and what kind of discipline would be administered.
Give us your feeling about what you witnessed when you saw this video.
I was shocked. I wasn't happy, and I was a little confused about who had approved that kind of activity. To me, it's common sense. You don't bring that kind of activity into a building anywhere, let alone a school, in an auditorium or a media center or gym filled with children.
What's your message to parents who see that video and say, what's going on in Palm schools?
Well, the reality is 99% of the time we've got great things happening in our schools. Periodically, people make decisions that aren't the best decisions. They maybe were intended, they may have been intended to be fun activity that turned into a dangerous activity. The actual skit, as I understand it, involved a dunking contest. And again, at the 50,000 foot level, looked like a good idea until individual, wind up lighting some sort of fire and then wind up getting burned.
The high school principal has been reprimanded in the past. Can you talk about a little bit about that incident?
Well, that incident is really separate from this incident, although the way we have our discipline structured here is if you've got a pattern of issues or concerns, then there's an escalating discipline that takes place with it. At this point, it's a little too early for me to comment.
Can you give us your assessment of how it was handled? So after the incident took place, while it was ongoing, and what the response was?
So it's a great question. The first piece is the only thing I have to go on right now is what I found on social media, which is I saw kids running, I saw adults moving kids out of the building. Now I will tell you that the assistant principals and principals we've talked to were able to demonstrate for us that kids got into the school and got it back into classrooms rather quickly. I was really proud of that part of the process, which showed that they did know what to do in case of an emergency. But in the end, I haven't really gotten an opportunity to see all the details to determine whether or not any additional protocols need to be revisited.
Superintendent, this fire breather says he's done this before. I think he said hundreds of times.
Right.
Were you aware that this was occurring in your school district?
So when I found out that that comment was made, I immediately asked our purchasing division to go back and see any checks that were written from the internal accounts, and we only found 4. So I don't know where he got a number of 200-300 performances. That may be statewide, but at this point, the last 5 years of records we've looked through only show 4.
Can you talk about the principal? Is she at the school today and any possible disciplinary actions?
Well, today is what we call Professional Development Day. Students are not on campus today. The principal is on campus, and we have opened an investigation, and we'll continue to look at what possible, administrative issues that we'll find, and if there are, then we'll handle them.
Are you saying that it was 4 other times that he was paid to perform this? Maybe it was brought out of PTA funds or something else. Is it possible he's done it 100 times in other schools?
I don't know that. I did ask individually each principal at the course of their tenure had they used this particular vendor, and the only ones that affirmed that question were the ones that we shared. And one school, Spanish River, used the individual twice. Once, which did include fire. Boca High School did one, which did include fire. Of course, this happened several years ago, so I was not aware of that. And as a new superintendent, it's clear I need to be reminding individuals that this is absolutely against board policy, and we've got to do a much better job communicating.
By his own admission, the entertainer said that he would offer it up as a closer. So he may have performed prior, but he may not have performed that particular act by his own admission. He would give the opportunity for whomever was doing the hiring to decide on whether or not they wanted that particular act to close it out or something else.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, my question is that then he could have already at times been performing, doing various things, magic, maybe song and dance, who knows? He just did not use a pyrotechnic.
Right, that's certainly a possibility, but my point earlier was that the payments made to this individual showed that there were 4 performances, 2 of which included fire, and we're still trying to confirm the 3rd one, which was done during a summer camp. We're trying to determine whether or not that included fire. I have not been able to determine if that occurred.
So we know out of the total of time that this man was made to perform within the school district, 2 of which confirmed he was fired. 1 we don't know, 1 he did not. Did the other 2, do we still not know?
So there are 4 schools involved, Spanish River twice, once of which included fire, Boca Raton High School, which it included the fire component, and then Manatee Elementary, which was done during a summer camp. We've not been able to determine whether or not fire was included and if it was inside or outside. And then of course this incident that we're talking about today.
Superintendent, we were contacted by students yesterday who told us anonymously that they were threatened if they were to post this video on social media that they would end up in suspension, or if they were to talk about this. Did you hear about this, and did you talk to administration about this?
I have not heard that, and based on the number of Twitter feeds that I saw, I couldn't imagine that that was the case because lots of students posted it, but I will take a look at that. That's the first I've heard of that.
Where does the district stand on that? I mean, is that we got the same information? I mean, the children have their phones. Is that a cause to give them a reprimand or something? Is that?
I mean, we always try to teach our kids to help protect their own reputation, the school's reputation. I can't imagine a principal could retaliate with that. If I found out about that, certainly I'd have a concern about it. In the day of Facebook and social media, Twitter, etc., that's the reality of where we are today. And when incidents occur, it's a very fluid process, and it's important our kids know how to conduct themselves online, right? They need to make sure that they're not getting themselves in trouble, but I wouldn't tolerate that kind of behavior.
Will any of the principals who had this in the past face any type of repercussions or disciplinary action?
It's a little too early for me to comment on that. I need to make sure that we've done a good job communicating what our expectations are. And again, this happened several years ago, so the context for me is going to be a little hard to manage.
Would you, post-mortem, would you say that you would request or would you consider requesting from everybody whatever materials they have related to this to give you a full view of what happened, or do you have enough to go on now?
I mean, I feel like we have enough to go on. I've asked for the last 5 years, and they're looking through any additional years maybe that we don't have record for. I've also asked the same question someone earlier mentioned, the whole PTA and who paid for it. Could that have been the issue? I don't have any information on that yet. The district principals have already been asked that.
Do you think student lives were ever put in danger as a result of this?
Look, I wasn't there, but when you put fire in a building, that's a problem. I know that the students were brought to the hospital as a precaution. I understand that they're doing fine, as is the individual who's responsible for this incident.
Will it be a legitimate excuse if the teacher says, well, other schools have done it, I thought it was okay?
No, that's not an excuse. The policy is pretty clear. And again, if I need to remind folks about what's expected, some of this is just flat out common sense. You don't start a fire inside of a building.
Where were you?
Those lines, when we talk about, maybe it's not common sense, but where is the oversight? Maybe is there somebody here in the district office who should be able to see each performance before it actually takes place at a school?
Look, logistically that's impossible. We've got 185,000 kids. The one who's responsible for that ultimately is the school principal. A lot of these decisions are made with the professionals that we empower to run their schools. They're big jobs and they're difficult. Having been a former high school principal myself, I understand the complexity of that, but there needs to be a trust and transparency with the teachers, the assistant principals, and others who bring these opportunities forward and make sure that they vet the kind of performances that they have. And look, 99% of the things that we do on our campuses work out the right way. They make the right decisions. When something like this happens, I always say, what can we learn from it to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Where were you yesterday when this happened, and what was your initial response? And then today, this story is trending all over the world. How do you deal with this?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Sure. Where were you yesterday when you got this news? What was your response? And then follow up, this story is trending all over the world today.
So it's always concerning when you see individuals get hurt, but the fact that this happened inside of a school in an event that was really designed to get kids encouraged, like a pep rally style, it caused some concern. You know, again, for me, my biggest thing is, are the kids okay? Top priority. I found out once that they were okay, I felt a little better, and then we're going to have to sort through what happens next. All right, thank you all.
Guys.